Hey, welcome to the podcast. This is the Surge Effect, and this podcast, well, it'll probably have an effect on you. Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Surge Effect. In this episode of the Surge Effect, we are going to be talking about immigration in this country. And I'm going to be showing you some videos on that. And I'm also going to be covering a little bit of shenanigans going on. The RCMP sending Carney a letter the other day about his cabinet people, some of the people in his cabinet. We're going to talk about a little bit of that, and then we're just going to finish it up with a couple of small videos on Pierre Poilievre. So, without further ado, here we go. Let's get rocking. So this first video I'm going to show you is a guy by the name of Ant Middleton. If no one knows who Ant Middleton is, you can Google this guy. Ant Middleton is about a 20-year veteran. I think he's about 17 years in the SAS, a British soldier. He's a Special Forces, and you might know him from SAS, Who Dares Wins TV show. But here he is talking about a little bit about the military, but he's kind of putting it into maybe something that you would understand. So this is has to do with immigration. So here we go.
Those that don't know, I do a TV show called SAS, Who Dares Wins, where I bring in broken people and I strip them down so they can identify who they are, so they have an identity, and then I build them back up to go out into the world and to achieve. And I got asked a question by Nigel and his wider team saying, could you do that with a broken country? How do you do that? And we went through how I broke people down. I said it's quite simple. Now, what I do with individuals, I bring them into a camp. I close those gates. Let's call it the border. I close the gates and I make sure that no one comes in unless they benefit the environment. Okay? Super important. If they benefit the environment, they can come in. 2, if they benefit the individuals in my camp, i.e. the countrymen and women. If they benefit them, you can come in. Also, if they adhere to the rules and regulations of my camp. And when I started to break it down, I was like, wow, actually, if we go back to the bare basics, if we strip it all back down, there's super similarities here. It's not too dissimilar. Yes, it's a lot more complicated, but it's not too dissimilar. Now, the moment those gates are closed, hopefully that individual feels safe. Super important, because safety then trickles into trust. If you feel safe around someone, you can start to trust someone. If you feel safe in a community, you can start to trust that community. If you feel safe in a country, you can start to trust that country. I've secured my camp. They feel safe. I make sure that people are safe, and I start stripping them down. Okay, broken people come to me, I strip them down, and I make them realize what they're capable of. I make them identify their true selves, who they really are. I give them an identity. Whew. What's British identity? British culture. What's British culture? British history. Okay, so why is that being eradicated? Why is that being trampled all over? Why aren't we allowed to be the umbrella culture of this country? And it's very, very simple. If I hear someone say once more, what's British culture, scones and tea, I'm going to throttle them. No, I'm not going to kill anyone, don't worry. But British culture is British history. British history is born, this country is born on the values of Christianity. Those values have worked for years, centuries and centuries to get us where we are today. The moment we lose our identity, Guess what we lose? Our purpose, our focus, our direction. What happens when we don't have an identity? We get confused. Number one, when I left the military, lost my identity, I got confused. When you have a nation of confused people, guess what happens after? Frustration. You get frustrated. Like the individual, very much like the individual. What happens after frustration? Anger. Anger, violence. Violence. What's happening on our streets right now? Violence. We are at a very, very important and crucial stage before it teeters into civil unrest, which we want to avoid at all costs. But it's coming. We are on that edge where violence has hit the streets. We've all seen it. I don't need to mention what it is. We've all seen it. And it might not happen in your community, but it's happening the majority. You go outside of London, it's happening outside, even on the borders, even in London itself. To a country, when that happens, trust starts to kick in. You start to trust people, you start to trust the people around you, you start to trust the community, you start to trust the country. And that's what we need to re-establish. We need to re-establish trust and unity within this country. And it's easily done. People say it's a lot more complicated than that. No, it's not. They like to think, they like to tell you that it is, because they're using military tactics of distraction. They distract you with all the irrelevant stuff, with all the virtual signaling, taking it away from the bigger problems, which we don't want to tackle, because they are complicated. The borders is a complicated thing, but they don't want to tackle it because it's so complicated. So what do? They distract you. They control you through division. That distraction method is absolutely evident. And when they distract you, they can control you. And when they can control you, guess what? We fall into chaos, and that's exactly what's happening now. We haven't got time. We haven't got time for this to happen. For me, the most important thing for unity and for everyone to be singing off the same song sheet is our culture. The culture of our beloved country. The history that we fought for to be here today. Phenomenal, I know it very well. I know it very well. Yes, we are accepting. Yes, we will bring everyone under that umbrella. Adhere to our rules and regulations. Respect our culture. You can come in and play. And another brief, but coming together, I talk about unity. Again, Scotland, Wales, Ireland. What's happening there? Let's come together. That is what we're here for. Look at the flag. Now, before I leave you, do not be put off with the distraction methods. Do not be fooled. Do not let them divide us, okay? Because the moment we're divided, well, guess what? Military saying we're conquered. And we're very, very close to allowing that to happen, okay? What I want to do...
Yes, divide and conquer, the oldest trick in the book, right? So I'm going to show you this document here that was actually given to people that came into Canada, into our country. And this is a citizenship and immigration. It was a standard letter. It says, "Dear Mr. So-and-so," attaches this letter. You will find your certificate of Canadian citizenship. You are now commencing your life as a Canadian citizen. It is with a great deal of pleasure that I am able to send you my personal congratulations on this important occasion. And the rights and privileges you have acquired entitle you to freedom of thought and speech, freedom to worship in your own way, the right to vote as you choose, and the right to be secure in your possessions. In addition, your citizenship carries with it the obligation to live in a peaceful brotherhood with your fellow Canadians and to do your part to the best of your ability to preserve Canadian ideals and institutions. Under these obligations, you will share with all Canadians the ancient liberties of a free people living together in harmony under a democratic government which recognizes the rights of all of its citizens. Yours sincerely, Guy Favreau, Minister. That was in 1963, given to all immigrants. I've said this before on my podcast. My in-laws are from Britain, and we've had my wife's family members over years ago from Britain. And her one aunt used to ask me questions if we had this or we had that. And usually about 3 or 4 years later, it occurs in Canada. It's almost like we're just a little bit behind them. But with immigration the way it is, we've always had immigration, and so is Britain, and so is everyone else. But if you get too much of one thing, it throws everything out of balance. And that's kind of what I'm saying with this podcast about immigration. So I'll even let Elon Musk kind of explain a little bit on his thoughts about immigration, how he feels, before I throw up a few more videos here about immigration. Here we go.
The mass immigration is insane and will lead to the destruction of any country that allows unfettered mass immigration. That country will simply cease to exist. At the end of the day, it is a numbers game, a numbers situation. If there are 8 billion people in the world, and let's say you're a country of, 50 million, 60 million, or, for a medium-sized country, but even for a country like the United States, which is 350 million, given that there are 8 billion people in the world, it only takes a few percent of the rest of the world to move to the country to where it is no longer that country. A country is not its geography. A country is its people.
There you go. The country is not its geography. The country is its people. Now, that's a fairly long video. I'm just showing you the first little clip of that. I'm going to show you another little clip here of a person doing a speech in Europe, and it's in regards to immigration. Here we go.
Amsterdam currently consists of 56% migrants. The Hague, 58% migrants. Rotterdam, almost 60% migrants. And of course, most of these immigrants come from non-Christian, non-Western, African and Middle Eastern countries. Conclusion: the Dutch population is already outnumbered in the majority of our cities. But let's look onwards. London, 54% migrants. Again, conclusion, native population outnumbered. Brussels, color me shocked, 70% migrants. Conclusion, native population majorly outnumbered. And other Europeans will, of course, follow suit soon if they haven't already. So I'm going to draw the forbidden conclusion here. The Great Replacement theory is no longer a theory. It's reality. And what's interesting about replacement is that the establishment will either deny its existence, or when they admit to it, they say that it's a good thing that the native European population is soon no longer a majority on its own continent.
Isn't that something? So that one, once again, goes on for quite a while, but you get the idea. How immigration, when it moves into an area and it just takes over that whole area, and sooner or later a country loses its identity, just like Aunt Middleton was speaking about. I often ask these people this question, and go ahead and give me the comments and below. What's it mean to you to be a Canadian? I know what it means to me, and I've said it on my podcast before, but what does it mean to you? You should be able to come up with about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 things, right? And remember, people always go, oh, it's good to be free. It's good, freedom. Well, with the Liberals and what they've just did, I'll just say one simple thing, Bill C-11. Bill C-11, I talked about for 2 years on this podcast, and people, for some reason, obviously don't pay attention to anyone else, but other podcasters that I know have said the same thing. Bill C-11 was the internet bill that controls what we hear, what we say, what we see, and what we can put on the internet. And basically, we're blindfolded to everything for news media. And to show you how bad it was, that when Trudeau put it on Google, Google wouldn't even give people in Canada news when the fires were occurring out west. And Trump gave them backlash about it, and they went, we're just following your law. That's how pathetic it is. It's pathetic, right? That's just one of many about freedoms, and people can say how free you are. Canada needs to wake up. That's what I'm saying. And this is what's happening in our streets right here. This is Daisy Media, and I follow this guy as well. He's awesome. He played a lot of good videos about stuff. But here's him in a protest, and this is what literally happened. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm just going to play part of it. So he's just filming off to the side.
I just was assaulted here. Are you going to do something about the assault? Who assaulted me? I was just assaulted. You saw 2798. He didn't do his job. You're going to worry about me, or you're going to worry about the people assaulting me? We going to let those assaults go today? Get out of my face. Dude, I just got assaulted.
Cop says, "Oh, get out of my face."
So I've been assaulted. None of these officers will help me. They won't help me. He witnessed it. Liaisons won't help me. They witnessed.
See, stuff like this, like it's like, what's going on here? What's going on when a person is filming immigrants having a protest, and the police don't do anything when he gets assaulted. So here's some more. These people protesting and blocking the streets, waving non-Canadian flags.
We salute our resistance in Russia. We salute our resistance in Yemen. We salute our resistance in
I'm not sure exactly what he is saying. Lots of protests, though. Here's one protest that was happening in Ottawa. Not sure if you caught this the other day on the news or even if they showed it, but here we go. So that was in Ottawa, and that was just the other day, actually. And like I said, I'm not sure how much of that was shown on mainstream media. Here is another protest for some reason in Edmonton, and they're yelling, death to Canada and stuff like that. So, like I said, if you remember what Aunt Middleton was saying about, staying with the rules, staying within the rules, being part of the community, what do you bring to the table, stuff like that. Do you make a situation better? Do you make it worse? Or even the letter that I read to you from 1963. You have to keep in mind all these things. And are the immigrants that are coming in now, are they adhering to those rules and regulations? And if they're not, what's going to be done about it? What's going to be done about people that break the law? When they block our traffic, or when they shut down people from going to hospitals, or if they have to, somebody's getting their wife to the hospital that's pregnant or whatever, and they got the Gardner Expressway shut down because they throw down their mats or whatever they are, and they sit on them and they pray or whatever. Is that necessary to do that on a road? You could do that somewhere else at a temple, I would think, but just my view on that. Here's another one here of a journalist. She's just looking at filming a few people at a protest. This is in Montreal. So she had her phone out and she was just filming the protesters. So I'm just going to show you another angle of the protesters that were in Ottawa, and this is right up on the hill.
كان عدد الشهداء والضحايا في غزة 15,000 جلهم من النساء والأطفال وسألنا.
So just from a different angle, like I said. This one here is a different angle of that lady that was filming again, and she got thrown down by the police. There she is. Montreal. The crowd was cheering about that one. I'm not sure why. They were just doing a little filming. So here is what Pierre Poilievre, what his thoughts are on immigration.
It's very simple. If you break our laws when you're here as a visitor, we kick you out. I don't know how anybody can disagree with that. If someone shows up in our country claiming to be a student or a temporary worker and they start firebombing coffee shops, bakeries, synagogues, or any other place, then they need to be immediately arrested and they need to be deported. If someone is obviously a citizen, they should be prosecuted through our legal system and put in prison here in Canada for those sorts of crimes. But there's no excuse for keeping people in this country who are visitors here on a temporary visa or permit if they're breaking our laws.
What about people who are here illegally? What about people who have entered the country illegally or who have come to the country, applied for asylum claim, had that rejected, but remain in Canada? Would you deport those people?
Yes, I mean that's supposed to be the policy right now. I mean, if someone comes in, makes a false asylum claim, it gets rejected, they're supposed to leave today. The challenge that we're going to face is that under 9 years of the Carney Trudeau Liberals' open border policies, we have now millions of people whose permits are going to expire over the next sort of 2 years. And
so there you go. That's what Pierre Poilievre thinks about immigration. Whether you agree or disagree, that's totally on you. Now we're going to slip into what's been going on with the Liberals, of course, because the Liberals, they want to have the immigration. They want to do what's called they want to triple our population in the next 70 years. So they want to bring in millions of people into Canada every single year, millions. So they want to triple our population in Canada over the next 50, 60 years. So if they do that, I believe personally, it won't be long and it'll be the end of what Canada is, what our identity is. We won't have an identity in Canada. That's just my personal opinion, but that's just what I see. And like I said, when I read you what I read earlier about the 1963 letter, when I read that part where it says the rights and privileges you have acquired entitle you to freedom of speech and a free thought and the right to secure and your possessions. In addition, your citizenship carries with it the obligation to live in a peaceful brotherhood with your fellow Canadians and to do your part to the best of your ability to preserve Canadians' ideals and institutions. So some of the things I just showed you there a little while ago. Yeah, they're peaceful. They're peaceful protesting. When they're yelling and shouting and screaming, nasty names at other people that are there just to film them. Protesting is kind of strange, but anyways, now we're going to move on now to the Liberals, because like I said, the Liberals are a slippery slope, man. They're a slippery slope, everybody. And here's Mario. This guy's great. I show a lot of his, not a lot of his videos, but last little while, he's been posting a lot of good stuff. So here's one here about what the Liberals have literally done with the institutions, the prison institutions. Here we go.
Breaking news. the Liberal Party of Canada, as you can see, the government of Canada, is actually going to jails and dropping this off to convicts. Look what they're trying to do. They're talking about the conservative Pierre Poilievre policy. They're talking about the 3-strike law. They're talking about the life sentences on serious offenses. They are campaigning on how weak their laws are and how much better it is for criminals. How is that not criminal within itself? Look at this. Less resources and fundings for all federal prisons. Like, that is not even a campaign issue. This is a mass misinformation campaign brought to you by the Liberal Party and the current government of Canada. This should be completely illegal. This is what's being distributed.
It should be illegal, but yet it's being distributed in the system. And here is what that sheet looks like right here. There it is right there. They're literally saying this is the party of Pierre Poilievre. And this is what they want to do. 3 strikes, you're out. Life sentences on serious offenses. Less resources and fundings for all federal prisons. And these things here, when they're showing them all the people in jail, they're like, oh, well, we don't want that. So, and this is being spread by liberals. Liberal propaganda. The Elections Canada should be all over this stuff. Right? They really should. And of course, on April 14th, this dropped. Breaking Liberals failed to act on foreign interference evidence just released in an open letter sent to Mark Carney by Sergeant Peter Merrifield and Detective Paul McNamara, retired, shows the Liberal government knew about foreign interference but chose to ignore it at their own benefit. And I'm going to show you right here in a second. There we go. So these 9 people, I'll show you this document here. Pop this document up. So Liberal cabinet ministers named herein, past and present, some now working in your Prime Minister's office, have directly and by internet permitted serious breaches of Canadian law. They have failed to act on serious allegations related to national security, conducted themselves in their cabinet roles with apparent malfeasance, and as a result, have ultimately placed several Canadian citizens at grave risk. We are asking you to show leadership and immediately remove the below-listed individuals from your party and or this election. We, of course, are offering a documents communications record and evidence to support these claims. The named ministers, past and present, of concern are as follows. Marco Mendicino, of course. Dominic LeBlanc is the next one. It literally tells you why. Like, Mendicino failed as Minister of Public Safety to act in protecting Canadians abroad from protecting or for potential arrest and detention. Failed to respond on direction from Prime Minister Trudeau's office to address impropriety as CSIS and the RCMP permitted breaches of law, breaches of process, and breaches of policy by both CSIS and the RCMP. And LeBlanc failed as Minister of Public Safety to address breaches against Canadians with improper use of electronic spyware by CSIS and the RCMP, failed to address breaches of the Canadians' Charter of Rights, and permitted breaches against labor unions by improper government use of spyware, failed to hold to account CSIS and RCMP to their restrictions of operations and sensitive sectors. The next one is national security failed to respond to these concerns after direction from Prime Minister of Canada. Further, did not hold CSIS to account for withholding critical national security information from an active RCMP national security investigation. Bill Blair's mentioned, David McKenty's mentioned, Anita Anand, Steve McKinnon, Melanie Jolie, Arif Varani, and Chrystia Freeland. And there's the Sergeant Merrifield and Detective Paul McNamara on the bottom. This was dropped the other day, actually, by Moose on the Loose. Dropped this the other day and did a great job of posting this stuff. But I will put a link below that you can click on. It's the X account of the CCFR-CCDAF account. And there's PDFs. You can actually download all this information. The information contained within was released publicly and without a redaction or vetting by Quebec RCMP National Security Unit and Public Prosecutions in October of 2024. The questionable Chinese interference file was manufactured by CSIS, who mishandled critical national security intelligence during the Meng Wanzhou, sorry about that, to Manchis crisis. CSIS portrayed one of its own Canadian covert foreign contract intelligence agencies operating in China. It goes on and on and on. I'm not going to read the whole message to you, but like I said, I will put the link below, and you can look at the rest of it yourself. But it says, in direct violation of Section 38 National Security Act restrictions on the disclosure of material harmful to the security of Canada, the Quebec RCMP, INSET, and the Public Prosecution Services of Canada, or the PPSC, willfully released without cause unvetted and unredacted material likely to cause harm in a contravention of Section 38. This public release of national security information identifies Canadian citizens acting at the direction of Canada engaged in covert intelligence operations in China. Like I said, you can click on the link below and you can find all that stuff that I'm going to post below. And you just go and find it, like I said, and download the PDF. So here's another little clip here. We're going to keep moving about the Liberals, of course. And this is Carney. And this is Jordan Peterson talking about Carney. A couple of minutes. It's a blast, but here we go.
It's like, did you know any of these things about Carney that I just described? And if you didn't know them, well, why didn't you know them? And well, part of the reason for that is, well, Carney hasn't told anyone, although he did write the book Values, but who's read that, right? But I read it, and I understood it, and I'm doing my best to explain to you what it meant. He's got the wrong idea about Canadian values, because we're not a fundamentally utopian, socialist, elitist, top-down, central planning society. We're a Western democracy. And the principles that Carney outlined as cardinal values of Canadians are not the cardinal values of Canadians. And it's an interesting thing for the bloody Liberals to do anyways, because under Trudeau, we heard nothing but the proclamation that Canada had no core set of values and that we were really a post-national state, and that insofar as we had any national identity at all, it was mostly that of genocidal, capitalist, patriarchal oppressors. And so I don't understand at all how the Liberals under Carney, who's certainly not an outsider, can be waving the flag of Canadian virtue at this point, while also proclaiming that they've got their finger on what the Canadian core values are, translated into DEI and ESG and net zero, which are radical, leftist, globalist, utopian, top-down, central planning dogmas that are incredibly expensive and truly ill-advised. Now, Carney, as far as I can tell, would rather that you didn't figure that out. And the reason for that is that he's riding high in the polls because Canadians look at his resume and they think he's qualified. And I can understand that because at the surface, his resume is impressive. But the question is, what has all that experience taught him? Well, it's taught him to be elitist to the extreme. It's taught him that him and his cabal of compatriots at the globalist level know better than you dim-witted peasants who are going to have to pay the price for his utopian vision. And it's taught him that, while the environmental crisis is so terrible, that's the carbon dioxide problem, that it's up to a handful of globalist elites to take the steps necessary to put things right. And if that means that the typical Canadian has to be made poor, well, that's going to happen anyways as the planet boils. And besides that, you peasants are too dim-witted to understand the nature of the, what would you say, existential threat that confronts you. And it's too bad for you that your children are going to be poor. Because you need that. We need that to save the planet anyways, as we jet off to Davos in our private aircraft and conspire to save the world.
Exactly, in a nutshell. So when Peterson was reading the Values, the book, I'm just going to show you a little something here. Right here, page 272. Quotes, these are quotes from the Carney's book Values. Freedom will be redefined by bureaucrats, page 112. The government will control every part of your life, page 122. You'll own nothing. That's the point, page 234. Business will serve politics, not Canadians, page 214. Your money will be tracked, rated and controlled, page 268. Markets will be morally correct. By whose standards? Page 139. Experts will replace democracy, page 245. All institutions must serve the WEF, the World Economic Forum. I've said it numerous times, page 240. And the last one is financial decisions will be judged by climate politics, page 268. Those are Carney's words from his book, Values. I've talked about that before as well. All right, so another thing about the Liberals, before I play this last little thing, Bill C-69 has to do with our oil and our gas. We have the 4th largest oil reserve on this planet. We have the 17th largest natural gas on the planet. These are resources Canada has. This guy doesn't want you to be able to use them at its full potential. Could you imagine saying to your child, I don't want you to reach your full potential. I want you to only reach 10% of it or 20% of it in your lifetime. You want to reach 100%. You want to maximize your potential. Why doesn't this guy want you to reach 100%? That's unleashing our oil and gas and making Canada wealthy, making us rich. I don't get this dude, but he's doing it not for Canadians. That's a fact. Once again, is our life better or is it worse? This is what he thinks of Bill C-69.
Reconcile keeping Bill C-69 with your plans to build infrastructure in Canada. Do you plan to repeal Bill C-69?
We do not plan to repeal Bill C-69, to answer your question directly.
There you go.
What we have said and made very clear 10 days ago, formally with the First Minister's meeting, is that we will move for projects of national interest to remove duplication in terms of environmental assessments and other approvals, and we will follow, as the federal government, the principle of one project, one approval to move forward.
1, repeal the No New Pipelines law and the tanker ban so that we can ship our resources to non-American markets. I voted against C-69. I have always been against C-69. I've said I will repeal C-69, the No New Pipelines liberal law, within 60 days of becoming Prime Minister. Mark Carney supported C-69, and he had a week after he became leader to recall Parliament to repeal it, as I demanded, but he did not. So their position is...
So there you go. You have Carney's position. He doesn't want Canada to reach its 100% potential. And Pierre does, always has, because he's Canada first. Always been Canada first. And he said it last year. He said it the year before. And like I said, I've been following him for like ever. He wants Canada to be first. So if the people that vote for the Liberals, obviously, they don't want that. Because you won't be able to sell our wares. What we have to offer the world, which is oil and gas. Carney's doing this, along with Trudeau. Trudeau did this. Bill C-69 tied our hands as Canadians to make money for this country. It's that simple. If you don't know the players, you're just going to get played. That's just a fact. And if you don't know the information that's out there, you got to find it. Find it in podcasters, YouTubers, people that are online. Mainstream media won't share this stuff. They just won't, because it's not in their best interest. They want Liberals to be in charge. Listen to this before I shut it
We
off.
a proud nation that bows and kneels before no one, with free and independent people, entrepreneurs, innovators, explorers, workers, people who are afraid of nothing and take on any challenge, people who lock arms and unite under one flag. Canada first, Canada last, Canada always. Let's bring it home.
Let's bring it home. That's what I say. I say bring it home. Bring it home. So that's the end of the old podcast today. And I'd like to thank everyone for for watching it and tuning in, subscribing to my podcast. It's much appreciated. All right, that's the end of today's podcast. I'd just like to say thank you very much for subscribing. I hope you shared a bit of information that you'd like to have there. Remember, Canada first, Canada always. And tonight's first debate's going to be in French. Looking forward to that. I say, let's bring it home, everyone. Bring it home and blue wave. Blue wave. Got to pass everything around. As many people as you can get out there and vote. I always like to end my podcast with this. This is that life is tough. Life is not easy. Everyone is struggling with something, small or large, just the way it is. What you have to do to overcome this is to keep moving forward. You got to keep moving forward. Nothing for you back there. Nothing for you. It's out there. Yesterday's history. Tomorrow's a mystery. And today is the present. That's why they call it a gift. Thanks for listening, everyone. Much appreciated. Until next podcast, enjoy.